So I've got my bind here and I can see that it's not working all the way. Like this flap here is a little shorter than it was a minute ago and it's not actually following the joint. I'm going to take this one here too and I'm just going to rotate that down. And now I can see what the bind is really doing to both the side and the flap. So I'm going to turn my skeleton off for a minute and I'm going to take a look at the box geometry. So the box geometry has this new node that I can see in the channel box. The new node is called Skin Cluster 1. And Skin Cluster 1 is the thing that is telling the vertices how to behave. The other thing that I have that's new is in my right-click menu, and this is not Shift right-click, not Control right-click, this is just my regular right-click. So like here's object mode, edge, vertex, vertex face base, multi-UV, all those things. I have this new option that is the Paint Skin Weights tool. The Paint Skin Weights tool is this lovely graphical interface. What it gives me is the ability to see all of my joints. I've got the east short flap, this one right here selected, and I can see this gradient. So on the gradient, black is a color value of 0, which is off. White is a color value of 1, which is on. The gradient is highly imperfect because you can see that there's some stuff in here that's moving around because of these joints, and I don't see the color gradient, so it's not perfect, and we'll talk about that later as needed. The important thing is that we understand that white is 1 is on, 0 is black is off. So with this, I can take my little paintbrush that I've got. If I read down, my paint operation is set to replace. My opacity is 1, my value is 1. I can come in here and I can paint across this part of the model, and that's going to cause these vertices to be influenced only by this joint, the east short flap joint. And I can go through, here's the east short side joint, and now I can paint this. The painting is really imperfect. It's not a great tool, but it does a wonderful job of showing you where the influence is. It has a bunch of flaws. The first one is that when I move out of the Paint Skin Weights tool, the window goes away, so you can't see it anymore. Just go back in. The second one is that the brush is really unreliable, and the third one is that I can't see the full gradient of everything that's moving, which is really annoying. The fourth one is that I can really only add weight, because when I add weight, I'm replacing the existing weight, I'm overriding it. When I try to set my value to 0 to remove weight, what happens is I'm not seeing where the weight is going, and about half the time the weight just automatically replaces itself where it originally was. So you can really only add to the weight. Most of these flaws can be overcome in another window that's a little bit harder to use, so we'll get to that as needed. And in the meanwhile, what I'm going to show you is a good trick for what to do when you want to use the Paint Skin Weights tool because you like just seeing the graphic interface of where your weight is. So I've done a little bit of painting on this, but I can still see that it looks kind of funny. What I'm going to do is go into vertex mode, and I am going to find right here, this looks like the top of this flap. Shift period will grow my selection. So I'm going to grow this selection all the way up the flap right to where the joint should be. So that was just shift period all the way up there. I'm going to stop here and leave this edge row alone because that's where I want some bending to happen. But all of the vertices that I have selected should go to my flap joint. So I'm going to right click, pop into the skin weight tool while I'm still in vertex selection, And now, instead of painting with the paintbrush, I'm going to hit this flood button right here. Oh, and look at how beautiful that was. It just flooded all of these vertices right to my east short flap joint. So that's your first trick. Your first trick is to select vertices and use Shift period to grow your selection. Now that's going to be a little harder for this section, for the side. So here I'm going to double click to select an edge. I'm in edge selection, and I'll grab these edges too. And maybe I will grab, not you, this edge and this edge. That's looking good. Maybe we'll do one more, two more here. Go around the other side, make sure I've got everything I think I have selected. Do I? Do I? Who modeled this box? Seriously. That's probably enough. Let's give it a shot like this. So I've got all of these edges selected. My Control right click menu, and that may be Command right click for my Mac users, will let me adjust my selection. So I want to take my edge selection, which is meaningless in terms of weight painting. I want to convert it to vertices. And hey presto, now I've got all of these vertices selected. Now I can do the same thing. I'll go right back into the Paint Skin Weights tool. This is going to be the east short side joint. I'm just going to flood this to a value of 1. And that looks so much better. So with just that little bit done, let me turn on my skeleton layer again. And let me reset these joints. I will zero out their rotation. And now if I take them and I rotate, that looks so nice and straight. That looks so nice and straight. I'm not losing any mass. I'm feeling really good about that. Now all I have to do is rotate around and do that same exact thing for all the rest of the flaps. I'm not going to make you watch me do that because it's going to be the same thing. I select the appropriate vertices, and then I move into the Paint Skin Weights tool, and I flood. So I am going to pause this recording, and I'll come back when I'm done and show you the finished product. Okay, I'm back, and I've done all of the flaps and the sides, and I need to do the bottom. So I went into vertex mode and I selected all of these vertices. I'm going to Shift period, maybe twice, and then I'll go back into my Paint Skin Weights tool. We'll go to the root joint and I will just flood to the root joint, and that should take care of that. Now I wanted to leave this here because I have this one really lovely problem going on here. I've got these vertices and maybe these vertices too that are just absolutely not in the right place. And I'm sure that you're thinking that all I have to do is paint them up to the flap or down to the side. But what I actually want to do is I want to remove the weight on these vertices that's coming from this side. And for that, I don't want to use the Paint Skin Weights tool because it is deeply uncertain. So instead, I'm going to close my tool settings window and open up, under General Editors, a window called the Component Editor. In the Component Editor, I have a number of tabs. One of them is the Smooth Skin tab. And in the Smooth Skin tab, I can see all of the vertices that I've got selected here and all of the joints that are affecting them here. Now, these vertices look like they're on one of the long sides, So I see a couple of longs, and then I see a couple of shorts. I'm just going to take these shorts, click and drag through these number columns, and then type in a 0 to remove that weight, and the vertices just snap into place. Now, the reason I like this is that it's going to keep the bend in this area. I want that area to have a little bit of bend because that's the hinge between the flaps, and it should be a little bendy. And if I had painted these just to the flap or just to the side, I would lose that bend. So sometimes you want to remove weight, and the component editor is the best way to do that. Seeing something a little funky here too, like these again are on a long side. Let's just remove this short side weight and this short side weight, and that should give me a little more consistency there. This has been working maybe a little too well. I'm a little suspicious of it because sometimes what you'll see happen is as you remove weight, you'll also see weight get added into these vertices on a random joint. And this window is the thing that's going to help me correct when that happens. And I'm a little disappointed that I'm not able to show you a horrible problem. And again, these vertices are on a long side. Let's get rid of this short side and this short side. And that's going to be a little bit better. Okay, so when I'm all done, just so you can see the finished product, if I right-click in object mode and go into my Paint Skin Weights tool, here's my root joint, nice and clean on the top and bottom, east short side, east short flap, north long side, north long flap, south long side, south long flap, west short side, west short flap. In every single case, there should be a little bit of gray here in the hinge, and then white all along where the object lives. So that's my finished weight painting. Give yourself some time for this, prepare for the unexpected to happen, and when you're ready, you can come back and we can start on the third part of the process, which is making controls.